Hi, welcome to this episode of The Daily. My name is Brendan Malone. Well, I've been thinking a lot lately about the importance of having fruitful and honest and meaningful communication with people online and how difficult that can seem to be sometimes. So with that in mind, I thought I would dedicate today's episode to highlighting what I think are 6 practical tips that if you remember and you try to work by when you are communicating with people about issues, even controversial issues online, you are far more likely to have a more productive, meaningful, and civil discourse with people about issues. So let's get into it. Number 1, the first thing you need to remember is that you should be proactive and not reactive. Don't be reactive. Don't just react. Someone might say something online that really infuriates you, but don't just react to it. Stop and make sure, when I say be proactive, make sure that your brain is in the driving seat, not your emotions, and that you're not just lashing out, you're actually proactively trying to share an idea, proactively trying to build a bridge, proactively trying to engage or explain something. You're not just reacting and reactionary and lashing out at someone. Number 2, don't personalize it. Unless someone is personally attacking you, by merely disagreeing with you, you are not being victimized, okay? So it is not an act of victimization. You are not being personally targeted for hate or abuse simply because someone is disagreeing with you or they hold a different view or opinion to your own. So don't act as if you are the victim. This is a conversation. It's about 2 equals engaging with each other. 2 equals who have the right to hold divergent views and opinions. 2 equals who even have the right to both be wrong. But don't act as if someone holding a different view or holding different ideas or professing ideas that you wouldn't agree with is somehow a hater or a perpetrator of crime or is trying to victimize you. They're not. They're just disagreeing with you. So engage with the ideas, present the evidence of your own or engage with their evidence, but don't personalize it and turn it into some sort of victim mentality where they are attacking you personally. If someone is attacking you personally, that's obviously a different story, and you should respond to that appropriately. But if someone is just sharing a different idea to your own, that's not victimization, it's not personal. Number 3, pause before posting. Before you upload a video or post a blog post or make a tweet or a status update on Facebook or reply to someone in a comment thread, particularly if the issue is controversial and you hold a strongly divergent view to the other person that you're engaging with, just stop and walk away. So write your comment, your post, prepare your video idea or whatever it is, but go and walk away, take a breather, have a cup of tea or coffee, maybe even take a bit longer time if needed, come back and have another look at what you're thinking about doing or what you've written or what you are about to post, and then ask yourself again, is this really necessary? Is it good? Have I gone too far in places? And what you often find by giving yourself that breather and pausing before posting is that you actually realize when you go back and have another look that in actual fact, you were a bit too intense or maybe you were being a bit too reactionary and you want to be more proactive and take some of the heat out of the conversation, and that little pause has allowed you to see where the heat is, to adjust the post accordingly, and then hit enter. And that can make all the difference in the world. The other thing that's a big advantage about pausing before posting, and by the way, you can tell when I'm replying to people on my phone because I'm all thumbs on my phone. I'm really terrible at this. And I often catch lots of other letters and I make lots more spelling mistakes on my phone. So pausing before posting actually allows you to stop and see any grammar or spelling mistakes, which can make for a really frustrating post read for people who are looking at your content. So it gives you the opportunity to see and to correct those errors as well. Number 4, listen to what people are actually saying. It is amazing how many online conversations get completely derailed by the simple failure to actually listen. People start assuming other people's motives. They start responding to things that the person hasn't actually said and doesn't actually believe, which, by the way, is a logical fallacy. It's called straw man, where you construct a straw man argument and claim that your opponent believes that straw man argument to be true. You destroy the straw man and you go, see, I've won. But your opponent rightly points out, but I don't believe that. Or I've never said any of that. So actually stop and listen. Read what people have actually written and take the time. If that means pausing before posting, again, this is where this pause before posting is important, and actually reading through a comment a couple of times to make sure that you've really understood it correctly, you're going to be far better off in the long run. And as I said, you actually are then listening to the person and listening to what they're actually saying, not what you think or assume they are saying, or what someone else has said to you in a previous conversation, and now you're just assuming that they are in that same camp and are saying the same sorts of things, even though clearly they're not. So stop and actually listen to people. Number 5, if in doubt, never ever assume something about what someone is saying. And I often have this experience where people will post a comment, it might just be a sentence or two or a word on something that I have posted online, bottom of a video or a blog post or a Facebook status, and it's not quite clear where they're coming from or what they mean. It could be interpreted either way. That maybe, well, possibly even that they're uncertain, or it could be interpreted that they're being sarcastic or they're angry at what you've said. Or it could actually be interpreted as being an attempt at a joke and they actually support and endorse what you're saying and they're trying to be positive and be clever about their endorsement. If there's uncertainty, never assume the worst. And I found this really, really helpful. And I always respond to people in that situation by assuming the best, by assuming that they are either being positive or that they don't mean something particularly nasty or sarcastic if there's uncertainty. So never assume the worst. Always assume that actually they do have your best interests at heart and that they're trying to be positive. And even if they were trying to be negative or sarky or anything else, what you often find is by treating them that way, as if they meant something meaningful, you can, not always, but you can often take the heat out of that dialogue, and then all of a sudden you are having a far more fruitful conversation than if you had just started out on the attack. And lastly, number 6, make good use of emoticons, particularly the smiley face. I also like the thumbs up, but the smiley face is one of my favorites. You see, the thing is that no one can tell based solely on the text that you are writing what the tone of your voice is, what your feelings are, what the tone of the conversation is. They just can't do that. Sometimes it's really clear when you're angry based on what you're actually writing. But often what happens is conversations online get completely derailed because people start reading into the text all sorts of emotion and motivational context that just isn't there and certainly isn't obvious from the text. So one thing I found that's really helpful is when I post a comment, particularly if it's about a controversial issue, and only if it's appropriate to do this, I might chuck a little smiley face emoticon at the end of a comment to try and show the person that I'm actually sitting here, I'm not angry and raging away like a raving lunatic and spitting froth from my mouth as I type. I'm actually quite calm, relaxed, and I've even got a smile on my face, and I'm enjoying the conversation that we're having. And it's amazing how doing something like that can be quite helpful. Another thing that's really important to do, I think, is to just put little reminders into your conversation. If you think something could be misinterpreted that you're about to say, and that it could be misinterpreted as an attack on the person, just put in brackets and make it aware to them that you know that this could be misinterpreted that way, and that's not what you're doing. So they are very clear where you're coming from. And that way you've done everything in your power to actually try and give some sort of emotional context to what is otherwise very plain and bland text, and that people can then take and misinterpret by reading all sorts of things into it that you never actually intended. So there you have it, 6 practical tips for having a more productive and meaningful dialogue with people online, even when the issues being discussed might be controversial or where strongly held opinions are involved. If you can think of any other practical tips that I might have forgotten, then please let me know in the comments section below. In the meantime, thanks for watching. I'll see you tomorrow on The Daily.